Okay, so we are now live on YouTube. If anyone is having problems with Zoom, you just need to watch the YouTube live from the YouTube applications. Okay, so let me begin this by saying Assalamu alaikum to all of you. Today we will be continuing our previous class on geopolitics, but today the topic will be very different because we will be discussing about regionalism. But before that, I would like to explain several things before we start. It is very important for you to remember that this is our sixth class because I would set the fifth class to be the discussion of Afghanistan. I will provide you with the video link for you to watch the discussion on Afghanistan, and please tell me what do you think, or do you have any questions about the issue in Afghanistan, because it is related closely to the area studies. Uh, okay, so the fifth class will be a video that I will provide to you in the Google Classroom. So this will be a sixth class. Okay, it's that. I hope that is well understood. Okay, so for today we'll be moving on from geopolitics. We will not be discussing anymore about geopolitics and related things, but instead we will be moving into a whole new topic that is called as regionalism. But before we understand about regionalism, it is very important for us to know the meaning of a region. So regionalism comes from regional and ism word. In order to understand regionalism better, we need to define first what is region. So, in several definition, a region could be defined as zones which comprises of states or members that has or share several similar traits, several similar and identifiable traits. So, a region could be a group of people or a group of states in this context which share a common behavior or common identity or common traits that could be easily known by the outsiders. In one example, I can mention the example of D8. Do you know D8, the development 8? Could you identify some of its members of the D8? Anyone? Could anyone identify the members of D8, for example?
Can I try, sir?
Yes, please.
US.
Not
And
that, not that, Apri.
not. Oh,
Not
okay.
that. D8, not G8, but D8.
Oh, oh,
It,
okay.
it is quite different from the G8 because G8 was mostly dedicated for developed countries, but D8 is a group which is consisting of developing countries, and most of them are Muslims. So I can mention that inside of the D8 groups, there are Turkey in and Bangladesh, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Iran, and Nigeria. So D8 comprises of those countries. Yes, yeah. Another examples about region uh, that is following this kind of definition, which is a group of countries which share similar traits, is the OIC. Why OIC? Because the member states of the OIC are Muslims. Yes, are Muslim majority countries or countries which has significant Muslim population. So OIC is one of the example of region if we are following this definition. Yes, is that well understood? Okay, so D8, why D8 is called as a region? Because the eight member countries has same identity as both Muslim and developing countries. OIC has similar traits of being a Muslim countries, and G22 is of course part of the developing countries. So, region in this sense could be defined as people or countries who are sharing similar behavior. So this is applies as well to the European Union because they are sharing the similar value as I've explained to you on the case of Erasmus. Or we could just define this region into this into something simpler than the previous definition, which are region is a group of country located in the same territories. Yeah. In the first definition, we know that uh, countries sharing the same values did not need to have same location. Yes, region in the first definition doesn't need to have share the same location, but instead they are sharing the same values. But in the second definition, which is more simple than the first definition, is that the country need to share same territories, but they are not necessarily sharing the same values. So if you are looking into definition of region, there could be these two kind of definition, and you should take care of this kind of definition. Yeah. So the first one is more value based, more identity based, and the second one is more geographical based. Yeah, looking into the territorial proximity of each countries to one another. Yeah. Okay. So for example, we have Southeast Asia, we have Africa, we have East Asia, yeah, which are could be defined as one region in terms of territorial proximity. Okay, moving on to regionalism. How we could define regionalism? This is a definition that I developed from my reading. So we could define regionalism as both policy and project. So regionalism is not only a policy because it also implies a project which is still on the process in the making. So regionalism could not be considered as something which is static, but instead a process that is uh, will be continuing for more than years to come. So it is a process to be. Yeah, it is a process of being something, not a process that is just stop like that, because this is will be keep continuing in next few years. Yeah, so regionalism is not only a policy but also a project whereby states and non-state actors cooperate and coordinate strategy within a given region. I've explained to you in the case of European Union, where certain countries in European Union have more initiatives to build further cooperation and also coordinate their cooperation within a very fixed strategy with non-state actors coming from university, coming from NGOs, coming from what is it, societal organization, in order to help strengthen the regional pillars which existed in that region. So it is very important for you to remember that, yeah, that the regionalism is a continuous project done not only by state actors but also by non-state actors, and they are cooperating with each other to fulfill the ideals of a united region. Yeah, the aim is of course to pursue and promote common goal. Yeah, for example, Europe would like to establish a free Europe, not only in terms of politics but also in terms of economic development, in terms of legal system. Yeah, in terms of legal cooperation, they need to build a very unified system that could be applied in the borders of Europe, of European Union. Yeah, so that is one of the examples of the aim of regionalism. For example, if in ASEAN, if ASEAN in ASEAN, we can see that ASEAN is currently trying to build an ASEAN custom union. Yeah. Last week, I've seen a news on how a truck driver is moving his cargo from Bangkok to Singapore without any kind of hesitation, without so much document checks. He just need to show that he is in part of the ASEAN Custom Union, so he wouldn't need to pay, or he wouldn't need to wait his cargo for so long in one port. He just need to show several letters, and he will pass the his cargo easily without being waited furthermore. Yeah. So this is one of the example of how um, regional organizations and also states are very instrumental in creating policy that could integrate a different political and economic system in a region. So it is very important for them to have a common framework upon an issue in order to ensure a more integrated and a more united region, such as in ASEAN. Yeah. So, moving on to a definition of regionalism, a continuation of the previous material. Uh, it is very important to remember that regionalism does not equal formal organization. So regionalism does not equal European Union. Regionalism does not equal the uh, ASEAN. Regionalism does not equal African Union. It is neither. It is nor a given process. Yes, it has to be constructed, it has to be transformed and reconstructed again in order to find the most possible, the most viable model that could be applied in one region, because each region has its own social, political, and economic context, and this context sometimes really difficult to be understood and to be adopted, need to be understood first. Yeah, for example, in ASEAN, we have a very what is it, introvert political culture, I might say like that. Since ASEAN, most countries in Southeast Asian countries have a big respect toward authority, and also have a big respect toward what is it, a silent political culture, not necessarily messy like in India, or not necessarily dynamic like politics in America or in Australia, but uh, in order to nurture the democratic spirit in ASEAN and also in Southeast Asian countries, the ASEAN member countries uh, need to have a stronger system that is adopted from the values of local countries. So, in order to nurture the democratic spirit, ASEAN need also to look into the values that has been adopted by member countries in ASEAN, in order to slowly nurture the democratic spirit in the region. Yeah, so it is a very hard and long process before a region could be eventually following into a value. For example, if ASEAN would like to follow a value of democratization, it would take a long journey, yeah, before everyone actually reach the same level of understanding. Yeah, in Europe it is easier because Europe has used to many kinds of democratic experiences in their own countries, but in ASEAN it is very different. Yeah, because in ASEAN we have countries which is still adopting a traditional monarch system, like in Cambodia, in Thailand. Even though in Thailand, the monarchy system is currently under challenge by the populist movement. Uh, they seek the monarch not to be abolished, but to be more accountable to the people. Yeah. We also see in the Brunei, even it's more traditional because they are adopting a system of absolute monarchy. Yeah. So in order to nurture the spirit of democracy, it's not easy. It's not as easy as in European Union, but we have to do that. We have to nurture that, and we have to make it harmonious with the local values, and that is what ASEAN is trying to do. Yeah, in this context. It is all. If you are also talking about the process of regionalism, it is also talking about a multi-dimensional form of integration which embraces economic, cultural, political, and social aspects. So we are not only talking about political aspect, but also about cultural, educational, economic, and social aspect. So if you are talking about regional integration, don't think about a political integration, but we are also integrating socially. Yeah, we will be mingling with people coming from Thailand, coming from Cambodia, which obviously have different political culture and also social culture than us. So a regionalism process need to be comprehensive enough in order to help people to understand each other better. Therefore, it is very important for regional organization to sponsor more exchanges, to sponsor more cultural activities that could help people understand each other culture better. Okay, I think that is well understood. Moving on. So, if we are studying about regionalism, there are at least two main types of regionalism. The first one is soft regionalism. Soft regionalism is promoting sense of regional awareness or community. Promoting sense of regional awareness is not something that is hard to do because you can start it for something that is simple
It's 10
but
hours.
it's close to our daily life. Yeah, for example, most of ASEAN countries has similar ghost beliefs. They have similar understanding of what is horror. Yeah, so people in Thailand could enjoy Indonesian horror movies. Yeah, the same case happened with Indonesian people. We also enjoy watching some Thai horror movies. Yeah, because we have similar understanding of horror. Okay. So promoting sense of regional awareness can start from things like watching movie together, yeah, or maybe sharing food together. I used to have friend from Thailand back then when I was studying in Turkey, and we used to cook many food together because we have similar taste bud. Yeah, we have similar taste bud. I can enjoy when he cook the tom yum, or he cook pad prik, or when he cook what is it like many Thai food. Yeah, of course halal. I would not. I wouldn't eat the non halal food because he's also a Muslim, and he would enjoy when I cook rendang or opor because we have similar taste buds. So promoting sense of regional awareness doesn't have to be something serious. It is something that is close to our daily life. Yeah. Like for example, if there is the Southeast Asian Culinary Festival, that could be one of the best way to actually promote sense of regional awareness. Yeah, especially now we have the milk tea alliance, but unfortunately Indonesia was is not still not included in that milk tea alliance because otherwise we are big lover of boba, and we are also big lover of democracy and anti-oligarchism. So yeah, promoting sense of regional awareness could be started for something like that. Okay. Hard regionalism is, of course, harder than the soft one. But what it is mean by the hard regionalism is that there is a serious process to actually integrate regional groups and also regional members to formalize their cooperation into an arrangement and organization. Yeah. So it is not just promoting sense of regional awareness to food, movie, or things like that, but making this more formal. So hard regionalism is talking about the formalities, yeah, the formal procedures, the organizational form of the cooperation in order to solidify the the integration in that region. Yeah? In many cases, we can see that hard regionalism precedes, yeah, precedes or flows from the soft regionalism. Yeah. So it is a very slow but a very steady process. So if we already have a strong sense of community within a region, in ASEAN we still didn't have that. We might feel a closer affinity as Indonesian to Malay, to Singaporeans, sometimes with Thai, sometimes with Brunei, but not always with Vietnamese, with Cambodian, with Myanmar, because the culture is quite different from the peninsular Southeast Asia, you know. If we are meeting with people coming from peninsular countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, Philippines, and Thailand, we might share a very common, what is it, food and also common understanding about culture. But if we are meeting with people coming from Myanmar or Vietnam or Cambodia, for example, we might have some kind of misunderstanding first, yeah. Uh, but if we have already overcome those challenges, maybe in the future, through a very extensive exchange program and also cultural activities by involving students from ASEAN, we will be sure that this kind of soft regionalism would be flowing into a more concrete and a more formal hard regionalism. I think that is well understood. Okay, moving on to regionalization. Look, this is a whole new different thing. Regionalization is talking about response, yeah, and regionalization is one of the steps of the process of regionalism. Yeah, so it is very important to differ the concept of regionalism and also the concept of regionalization. Okay, so regionalism is talking about a broader process. Yeah. Meanwhile, regionalization is included as a process within regionalism itself. Yeah. So regionalization is usually talking about how a certain region responds to a conflict that has taken uh, a regional nature. Yeah. So, for example, um, we can see that ASEAN during the years of 2008 and 2009 was very active, uh, of course, with the leadership of Indonesia back then, to mediate the conflict between Cambodia and Thailand. Yeah. At that time, Cambodia and Thailand was contesting a piece of land. I forgot the name of the temple, what Prakau or what is it? I didn't really remember. So they are contesting a piece of land which has a very big complex of of Buddhist temple, of course, and they have a strong claims to each other, and they always what is it, conflicting over this piece of land. Before the armed confrontation could happen, ASEAN as well as Indonesian foreign minister at that time, it was Pak Martina Talagawa. He was conducting a shuttle diplomacy. That is, he is meeting the Thailand government and also Cambodian government uh, in a very intense way, as to make sure that they are not making any mess that would affect the political stability and also economic development in the region. Yeah. So regionalization is a process that includes response taken at the regional level to stop a conflict for becoming a more regional one. Okay, yeah. So the conflict should be diffused before it is becoming a regional conflict. Yeah, Praviar. Thank you, Apri. True, Praviar. I forgot the name. What Praviar? Um, Another thing, yeah, we can see that in Middle East In Middle East, they didn't have a single organizational platform which could have countries to be mediated in one table. They of course have the Arab League, but Arab League is not that effective in dealing with problems between countries. So in Arab League, for example, we have Syria, but Syria uh, has met conflicts with its own people, and then therefore it is getting ousted from the Arab League. So the regional organization does not have. So the regionalization is not happening in Arab countries, but instead it is happening in Africa. It is happening in Southeast Asia. Why it is happening in Africa? Because African Union has a very different principle that differs them from ASEAN because they have a principle of intervention. Yeah, whenever there's a conflict in a certain countries which is the member of African Union or part of African countries, African Union would motion for peacekeeping operation in that particular country. So, for example, there is a conflict in Central Africa, there is a conflict in Somalia, and African Union would send some troop. Of course, with the coordination from the United Nations, they would send the troop. Yeah. Uh, in order to have the conflict not becoming a more regionalized one, because if the conflict is taken a regional platform, the condition in the neighboring country would be worsened because the refugees would be moving to neighboring countries, and it will affect their political stability and economic development. Okay, so back again to regionalism. So regionalism, it's not an up-down process. Yes, I will strongly give this a bold, yeah, underline. It is a process which, of course, involves communities and societies responding to a variety of problems by cooperating with each other. So you don't need just state in order to help regionalism prevail. You also need non-governmental civil society organization to eventually realizes the idea of a united region. Therefore, it is not just about, yeah, state cooperation. It is also ties and also cooperation between peoples coming from different countries in the same region. Okay, so it also needs our role. It also needs the role of the people, which of course need to be sponsored by the state because otherwise people didn't have the money to do so. Okay, why it is very important to study regionalism? The first reason being, yeah, the discussion about international relations and global politics doesn't always discuss about the problem which happens in the global level. Yeah, most of the studies of global politics, even today, are still focused in a more macro stage. Yeah, but most of the world conflicts, yeah, currently occurring at the regional level. So it is very important for us to realize the urgency to learn regionalism and also to know how regionalism could work in different political culture. Yeah. And of course, why regionalism is important, because unilateralism is not the answer. We are looking at the rise of China, at the rise of many countries in Asia to actually replace the American political and also economic domination. We could also see the rise of India in certain extent. Yeah. And also dominance of certain state or organization um, is the key for what peace. It's not always the key for what peace, yeah, because we need a common goal which could only be built by cooperating with other in a regional organization. Moving on. I'm sorry if this is going quite fast. We still have at least 8 more slides, so please bear with me. Uh, there are at least two important arguments about regionalism, which was developed by Mary Farrell. So Mary Farrell said that regionalism is, of course, a process to respond the globalization. Yeah. Uh, because regionalism would like to focus not only on the global context, but also what is important is also to look to the regional and also local context. Yeah, in order to avoid the globalization become a hegemonizing principle, so that people are following global standard, but global standards, yeah, doesn't always apply in the certain regions, such as the region which uh, relying heavily on Asian values like in East Asia. Yeah. So regionalism is a process as a reaction to the diverse aspect of global processes in the entirety. So regionalism would like to make a balance with global politics. Therefore, understanding regionalism and also the context of regional politics is important to balance the overarching narratives of globalization itself. Yeah. Also, the second thing about regionalism is that regionalism is a process which emerges from the internal dynamics of the region and also the motivations and strategies of regional actors. So if we are talking about regionalism, we are talking about the internal dynamic, how the countries in a certain region interact with each other, and also how they could develop motivation and strategy in order to help them interact uh, with neighboring countries in a region. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. The many way to regionalism. Yeah. So regionalism has a long history, but it was started during the formation of League of Nations. Yeah. After World War One, during one of the proceedings of the League of Nations, there's an idea to actually give a space, give a territory for regional groups in each region to develop their own cooperation. Yeah. One of the first example and the few successful examples of early regionalism in 20th century is Inter-American system. This was also becoming a stronger organization once United States entered the era of Cold War. Yeah, because Inter-American would like to strengthen the defense of American countries from the attack of Soviet Union. As far as I remember, you can check it. And also one of the first regional organization that I could mention is the transborder regionalism conducted by Comintern. So Comintern is trying to create one ideology and to create one vision of creating world without class. Yeah. So Comintern in this aspect could be also considered as the region because they are sharing the same values. Okay. Friends, wait while for a while. I need to take some drink with me. I will also let you to listen to some what is it to some music while I'm going out for a while. Uh,
Şimdiki şarkıya ben bayılıyorum. O Light albüm. Benim bölümüm şurada başlıyor. Belki benim kağıt param. Burası çok romantik geliyor bana.
Hiçbir neden yokken ya da da biz bilmezken tepemiz atmış ve konuşmuşuzdur. Onca neden varken ve tam sırası gelmişken hiçbir şey yapmamış, susmuşuzdur. Aynı anda, aynı sessiz geceye doğru İçim sıkılıyor demişizdir. Aynı sabaha uyanırken kim bilir aynı düşü görmüşüzdür. Olamaz mı? Olabilir, doğru. Onca yıl sen burada, onca
Okay, back to the previous explanation. I'm sorry. I need to so after the Comintern and also the creation of the IAS in America, of course, we can see that in Europe we have organizations such as the European Coal and Steel Community that envisions to create a more integrated trade and also economic networks between steel and also coal producers in European countries. But this was not stopped at the level of industrial level, but also transformed into something more solid, uh, more macro, and eventually this led to the formation of the European Economic Community and eventually to the creation of European Union. Yeah. In the case of our region, which is the South East Asia, we see that the creation of ASEAN was dependent on the condition of Cold War itself. Yeah, at that time, we as Southeast Asian communities were facing the challenges of the spread of communism coming from the Vietnam War, and that worried many ASEAN leaders, Southeast Asian leaders. So they decided to create an organization which could help them to stop the influence of communism from being a dominant ideology in Southeast Asia. So that is why ASEAN is created. Okay. United Nations in its charter empowers and legitimizes regional agencies by offering this organization a formal role in conflict resolution. So this was being mentioned in Chapter 8, Article 52 of United Nations Charter. Yeah. So if we are talking also about regionalism, there are two kinds of regionalism. The first one is, of course, the territorial-based regionalism. Yeah. For example, we have Organization of African Union, Organization of African States, the Arab League, the SEATO, and the SEATO, which was the previous organization before ASEAN was initiated. Yeah. The second one is, of course, issue-based regionalism, which obviously base its cooperation on the basis of common issues. We have OPEC, non-aligned movement, and also G77. Well, OPEC is talking more about petrol economy and also trade. Non-aligned movement is mostly talking about the political autonomy of third world country. After the Cold War, we can see that the globalization process has grown significantly, and it leads into a new process called as new regionalism, which appears irreversible and marked with the decentralizing international system. And this will eventually lead to the removal of superpower influence in that region, and also a growing sense of regional identity conscience. We can see that this has been successful in case of Europe, but it is not really successful in the case of ASEAN. For example, yeah, we could not produce a single document from ASEAN which condemns Chinese activities, which would like to criticize Chinese of the activities in South China Sea, because several countries in Southeast Asia are more pro-China, are taking a stance that is pro-China, and that is shown in the case of Cambodia, for example. Okay, so okay, talking about new regionalism, it is not also marked with increasing and also continuing growth of member state. So it is not talking about the expansion of the region itself, yeah, but also the expansion of its capacity and also its relation with different organizations. We can see that ASEAN is currently undergoing this kind of process, okay? So ASEAN is not adding new members, but they are expanding their capacity and capability in order to face new challenges every year, yeah? New regularism is, of course, also talking about interregional cooperation. We can see that ASEAN and Latin America Forum has its own communication platform to connect with each other, yeah, as well as ASEAN and SAARC. Yeah. Okay. When we are looking into the process of regionalism, we usually will encounter these 3 points. The first one is capacity. Yeah. Would a regional organization or a member state took initiative with their own capacity to actually manage all of these member state? Yeah. So capacity is talking about the ability of certain people or certain group to impact, yeah, okay, to impact and also to influence the policy taken. Okay, so frankly, it is a quite sensitive topic if we are discussing about regionalism, because in European Union there is currently a movement called as Euroscepticism, yeah, which tries to, what is it, delegitimize the existence of European Union because it is endangering each country's national interests. Yeah? But I would like to quote a quotation from Boutros Ghali, which is saying that it is not the time for uh, absolute and also exclusive sovereignty. In fact, if you are being the part of regional organization, for example, in European Union, you need to be loyal to the values that has been implemented by European Union in certain countries. Yeah. Okay. The third one is, of course, hegemony. But regionalism itself is a dynamic process, and it will grow into a large size. So it is not talking about strong power, but how a region could be dependent to each other. Okay. So why regionalism? Why regionalism? Regionalism is one of the most appropriate and also viable level. What is it? What is it rating? A viable level to reconcile the changing and intensifying pressures of global politics, and of course, it also give chances to state to negotiate a deep integration, which is obviously not happening in the front table, but also in a more informal settings. Yeah. So it is very important for us to know that deep integration in terms of economics and trade didn't have to be necessarily arranged in a formal meeting, but also what is it in the process of informal sessions as well. So the negotiation of deep integration and inclusive role is important to manage the effect of globalization from impacting the regional economy too much. Yeah. The third one is regionalism could be a process of controlled or negotiated integration into the global economy. So regionalism is not something that is going like what is it? Like a 1000 night story, yeah. It is a process that needs to be always be followed and also need to be understood. So in order to have a better understanding to what the controlled or negotiated integration process, yeah. And we have, if we are talking about post 1945, what is it? Politics. Uh, we are also talking about how regional organizations are trying to bargain the market liberalization and also social protection on the other. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Is there any question or remarks from friends here? If there is any remark, please just address it to me. Questions if you got confused. Am I explaining it uh, pretty fast or what? Yes, Apri, please.
Sir, okay, thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Um, I'm so interested in the sentence that you say, regionalism tried to remove all superpower overlay, which I think that it's very what's this contrary with the theory of realism that it always lays on the power of a country. So does it mean that actually when we acknowledge regionalism, it means that we always against realism because um, what's this? There is difference between the acknowledge of power in those two theories.
Mm, okay. Of course not, Apri. Of course not. Why? Because in most condition we are facing a real politic circumstances, right? Let me give you an example of how ASEAN has taken a very divergent position. ASEAN member countries are taking very divergent position on how to deal with China in the case of South China Sea. Yes, some countries like Indonesia and also with what is it? With countries like Singapore are really worried about the creeping Chinese influence in the region, especially in South China Sea. Yeah? So they are seeking to have a more strategic cooperation with larger hegemon, which obviously they are trying to bandwagon the China by taking sides to the countries. Uh, to the larger countries, of course, in the Australia to the United States. We also looking at the examples of Cambodia. For example, Cambodia didn't have a very tough stance over China. Instead, what makes ASEAN didn't have a common document on the issue of South China Sea is because Cambodia is always try to what is it? Not to veto, but not to put a signature in it. Yeah, because ASEAN works with the principle of consensus. Yeah, when a country doesn't agree with the position, so be it, yeah. So there will be no document and everything is just finished. That is why people are always saying that ASEAN is like a talking shop or like a warung kopi when people are talking about problems, but without really solving it. Yeah, they're just talking about the problem. Sometimes brawl, sometimes fight with each other. But at the end, the problem is not solved because they have a very deep disagreement or with each other. Yeah? So it is need to be understood that uh, that removing the superpower overlay doesn't mean that the superpower will be disappeared altogether. No, that is not the logic. Yeah, because we are living in real political circumstances. That is why much dependent on the issues. Yeah, so if the issues is less serious, like let's say for example the issue of economic integration, then again it's a serious issue. But I think ASEAN member countries could be what is it could be having a consensus over this issue. uh, And in this kind of issues of economic integration, for example, uh, we didn't have to be dictated by the superpowers. But in the case of security, it is much different. So we of course would have a very diverse, a very different perspective on how the South China Sea could be solved, on how the Chinese influence could be balanced. So it is much dependent on the issue, Apriya, about the superpower overlay. Thank you very much for the nice and good question. Anyone?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, you're welcome.
Sir, can I ask another question?
Yes, yes, please, please, please.
Okay, we know that just few weeks ago,
Yeah.
the issue that US tried to give a visa for our for
Pak
Prabowo.
Prabowo, ya, Pak
Yes, for
Prabowo.
Prabowo after banning him for a few I think more than 20 years. And if I'm not mistaken, a few days ago, Pak Prabowo visited US as part of the what's this I don't know what he's doing actually, but okay. If we talk about the geopolitical condition in Southeast Asia, is
Mhm.
it does US try to give visa for Prabowo because they try to balance the influence of People Republic of China in Southeast Asia, especially in Indonesia, or it's just normal international interaction situation?
I think there's a dimension that we should not forget about this. Prabowo was a very hated man. One of the Indonesian which was not provided visa from the America for so many years because of its involvement in many human rights violations, particularly during the Reformasi years. Uh, we can see that the act of America is mainly principled upon the basis of balancing the Chinese domination. Yeah, I think uh, there's a degree of truth in what you have said before about uh, the consideration of America to give a special and also conditional visa for Prabowo is because America is trying to ask Indonesia to be on their side, especially when we are talking about the Indian Ocean and also talking about South China Sea. They are in need of Indonesian support because Indonesia has a very fast coastlines which could help if which could help America to tackle Chinese influence if Indonesia is choosing the American sides, yeah, in this perspective. So I think that there's a very close correlation between the decision to give Prabowo visa and also America's grand strategy in Asia Pacific, yeah. Because otherwise, if they didn't consider China as a great threat to their security, they wouldn't bother to give Prabowo visa at all, you know, because they could just interact with any other officials. Yeah. And another thing that attracts my attention is that Prabowo is a very, what is it? A very diligent traveler, and he is going everywhere. He's doing his what is it? His defense diplomacy. I think in a very good way. He utilizes his profile and also his charm and also his what is it? His capacity in order to make partner countries believe that they should have Indonesia to develop its own defense system. And I think that one of the thing that Prabowo mentions when he meets with all of these counterparts, yeah, from Turkey, from France, from Russia, and also from what is it, from America, is that Prabowo is saying that Indonesia could be a trusted partner in ensuring the security in Asia Pacific. Yeah, yeah. It is very important to remind that, because Prabowo would be always saying that Indonesia is a trusted security partners for all of these counterparts in ensuring the security and stability in Asia Pacific against any kind of threats. The threats could doesn't have to be China, of course, but also about the piracy, also about the transnational crime. So, in order to influence these counterparts, Prabowo, what is doing his best, yeah, to show that Indonesia needs to acquire strategic weaponry to strengthen its defense stature. Yeah. Probably in next 3 to 5 years we will see much improvement in our defense system, but I'm not sure either if the government changes during the 2024 election, and we have a serious economic crisis in next 2 or 3 years, and we have corruption scandals. I think that would not simply work, because yeah, acquiring defense system is not that easy, yeah, and it's not that cheap, because you have to pay two costs. The first one is, of course, the political cost. The second one is the economic cost. The economic cost is dealing with how you would pay the money. Is it in installment or is it in cash? Yeah. If it is installment, of course, it's easier. It's much easier, but you will need to add more debt, security values. Otherwise, our plan to acquire defense system from those countries will be considered as something dangerous for the national interest. Yeah. So we have to be always smart, and always to be so always ready to what is it, to face challenges uh, in this otherwise a very dangerous world. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Apri. I'm actually thinking about these issues for past few weeks, because I see that Prabowo is so active in in striving his goal of a strong Indonesia, and also a stronger Indonesia with stronger defense system. I think it's a very interesting topic for Scripsy to be worked on if you want to next year. Okay. Yasin, could you repeat your question, Yasin? I could not understand your question.
About the regionalism. A second slide, I think.
Regionalism or regionalization?
Yeah, regionalization. I'm sorry.
Okay, regionalization. Okay, I might as well repeat that thing. Wait a minute. Which part of the regionalism that you didn't understand? This one, right? Let me share to you just to make sure. Which part of the slide that you didn't understand, Yasin?
Can you next slide maybe?
Next slide, okay. Next slide, which one? This one? No? Which one? Could you mention it to me?
There's one like regionalism, but it's not important, I think.
But which one? I need to make sure, because otherwise we will not have
Next again, sir.
next again, okay. Is
Yeah, this slide.
okay? Regionalization. So regionalization is one step within a longer process of regionalism. So it is only an episode within a longer process of regionalism. Do you understand that? I need to make sure because otherwise I would repeat this again. So regionalization is a process, is a step within a larger process of regionalism itself. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So regionalization is talking about how a region is giving a response to what a crisis that is happening in their own region. Yeah. Okay. In order to ensure that the conflict would not become a more regionalized or interstate conflict or interstate conflict. Uh, so in the example of African Union, for example, in African Union, we can see that there is a conflict in Somalia between the government and also Al-Shabaab. Yeah. At that time, the African governments and also African Union considered that conflict to be dangerous as it would cause the flow of migrants and also flow of refugees to be happening from the Somalia to neighboring countries in Kenya, in Tanzania, for example. So, in order to ensure that the effect of these conflicts that is happening within the Somalian border would not be impacting another countries, yeah, African Union needs to make sure that this conflict would be only happening within the borders of Somalia. So they are decided, of course, after coordination with United Nations, uh, they have decided to send peacekeeping troopers in order to stop the fighting between government and Al-Shabaab from happening. Okay, is that clear enough, Ayasin?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, okay. Any other question? I might entertain one or two more before I am stopping because I still have assignments and also classes and meetings to be done today. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, I think that's all, and everyone, thank you for your participation. We will be meeting again. I don't know. Next week is already. Do we have midterm next week? Okay, that's that.
I think we will start midterm on 4 or 5, sir. November.
On the 4th November.
Yeah.
Do you already acquire the midterm schedule? Do you know when is the date for our courses? The midterm for our course for the introduction to area studies.
Wait,
At,
sir.
at which date exactly? I didn't really remember. Let me check if I have. Oh, I have the document. Wait. Oh, why this semester is going so fast? I didn't really like it. So okay, we will be having it on November 11. So I guess before we have the examination at the November 11, yeah, we will have another class at maybe on the 3rd November. I will give you a video, maybe a recorded session, or maybe we can just arrange a synchronization so that you can understood the topic better. We'll be meeting again on 3 November, November the 3rd, I think, so we could have a deeper discussion about the regionalism. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. If there is no question, I would like to close this by saying Alhamdulillah. And
Alhamdulillah.
thank you for your participation. See you maybe next week. I will inform you later. And Bang Ari, Ari is not present. I think. Ari, are you there? No. I think there's only Fina. Okay, Ari is not present here. Bang Ari as tutor is not present. So we will see each other next week. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Thank you, sir. See you next week.
Sir, have a nice day. See
Thank
you
you,
next
sir.
Bye.
Stay
Thank
safe,
you.
healthy.